Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed. At 1,000 subscribers, I'll be posting a special video. The bathroom lock clicked and his fist hit the door. 2 lines bled through plastic while steam ghosted the mirror. I wrapped the test in tissue and hid it fast. "Babe, you okay in there?" His voice hovered too steady. "I'm Mara, 29, and I wasn't shaking for nothing." "Stomach's weird," I flushed to buy a breath. "Open up," he urged, a soft knock that wasn't soft. I tucked the bundle in my hoodie pocket and unlatched, heart sprinting. Luca stepped in close, eyes skimming my face like a checklist. "Vitamins help with nausea," he murmured, a smile pinned in place. His phone lit on the counter with a bright buzz. Lena's name pulsed once and froze us both. He grabbed the phone fast and slid it away. "Team chat," he shrugged, jaw tight under clean skin. I touched the sink to anchor the room. My pocket burned and his stare didn't blink. "Tea?" He lifted a mug already waiting by the kettle. Ginger hit my tongue and nausea snapped awake. I swallowed anyway and watched his hands hover. He watched my pocket like he could see through cotton. "Names are fun," he laughed too loud, then fixed it. "Boy names, girl names, we could try sounds." My grip closed around the tissue bundle. "Maybe we don't name wishes," I breathed, testing him. He leaned on the doorframe like he owned the hinge. "This is us," he said, voice gentle with an edge. Steam thinned and the mirror found our shapes again. I saw mine smaller than yesterday and hated that. He kissed my forehead, brief and careful, then checked the time. A second buzz whispered from his pocket and he ignored it. I felt the scene tilting toward something I couldn't stop. "Work late?" I asked, already knowing the answer would slide. "Quick errand," he said, already moving toward the hall. He touched my wrist, then glanced at the counter again. "Trash looks full," he added, like that mattered now. The front door closed and the apartment exhaled wrong. I dumped the tea and reached the nightstand and froze. One wrapper felt wrong between my fingers, too thin. Held to the light, tiny wounds glittered like a map. My pulse went flat, then hard, then calm like winter. Another check, another constellation, another knot in my throat. My head cleared fast because failure meant a different life. I lined 2 on the dresser and counted holes like proof. Hands steady, I pocketed one like a receipt with teeth. His car returned and tires hushed outside and keys scraped. I dropped the wrappers back and smoothed the cover. The test sat warm against my ribcage and waited. I stood still and chose not to cry. The door swung and he smiled, too big and too bright. "Got your favorite crackers," he announced, a little breathless. He paused at the bedroom threshold like he expected applause. I nodded once and stepped sideways, forcing him deeper. "Drink more," he set a glass down and watched me sip. "Better?" he asked, and his hand hovered near my waist. I let the silence stretch until it creaked. He blinked first and checked his pocket again. "Let's make a plan." He pulled a chair and sat. "Appointments, budgets, we can do this easy." My throat warmed with something that wasn't fear. "Why were the condoms cut?" I asked, voice flat steel. He stilled and swallowed and rubbed his thumb across the table. "What are you talking about?" came out too careful. I held his gaze and didn't blink once. His phone vibrated again and his eyes flicked down. I pulled the tissue from my pocket and set it between us. He stared at the shape like it might explode. "Now we plan," I said, and my hands stopped shaking. He reached out slowly and I pulled it back faster. "That could be anything," he tried, a low, rough whisper. "It's exactly something," I said, and my mouth tasted copper. He opened his palm like he offered mercy. I didn't give it and the phone buzzed again. He stood and paced once, then faced the wall. "We're engaged," he said, and the word dragged. "Families expect progress," he added, eyes shut brief. He turned back smiling and the smile wasn't human. I stepped to the nightstand and lifted one wrapper. "Accident or habit?" I asked, in ear thinned. He looked at the ceiling like answers lived there. "Trust me," he said, and trust cracked underfoot. I pressed the test against my palm until it hurt. He reached again with fingers trembling just slightly. Something in me clicked into place like a lock. "We're not done," I said, and meant it like a warning. He exhaled and forced a laugh and changed the subject. "Crackers," he repeated like a word could save him. He placed the box between us like a tradie. I left it unopened and his smile finally twitched. I lifted his phone as he washed his hands. Face ID caught my stare and unlocked without a hiccup. Messages opened to Lena, with a blinking cursor waiting. I typed a casual check in and pressed send, pulse steady. Her reply landed fast and flirted around details. Same time tonight, she wrote. Then 3 private emojis. I scrolled higher and found repeating blocks with initials. A neat pattern hummed there and something inside hardened. I asked what last night meant, keeping it light. A voice note arrived with a little nervous laugh. He likes rotation tidy, she breathed, then paused. My jaw clenched and I kept the window open. I mirrored the screen to my laptop with one tap. A folder marked receipts filled itself with every capture. Back in chat, I asked which day was mine. Thursday, fiance, she wrote, and my throat went dry. Proof mattered more than anger, at least for now. I nudged her gently toward specifics and times. She sent a screenshot of a shared reminder called planting. 3 names showed beneath it and mine sat first. Water shut off and the mirror stopped trembling. I tossed the phone face down and the laptop closed. He stepped into the doorway and watched my face. Hungry, his tone reached for normal and missed. Later, I passed him on purpose and let silence bite. He followed into the living room and hovered near. Plans tonight, I asked like it was nothing. He checked his watch and smiled with extra effort. I'll be quick, he fetched keys and smoothed his collar. Pick anything for dinner, he added with a bright nod. The door clicked and the hallway swallowed his footsteps. I opened the laptop again and dragged everything to cloud. Lena pinged with a single question and a delay. Are you safe, she wrote, then deleted twice. I answered with honesty that felt like a knife. Not sure yet, need more, the typing bubble returned. She offered a number for another woman named Nia. Overlap with you sometimes, she wrote, then hesitated. I saved the contact and sent a short greeting. 2 minutes later, my call rang through and connected. Who is this? A low voice asked with caution. I'm the Thursday one, I said, breath measured. Silence stretched, then a careful inhale reached my ear. Okay, she whispered, I get it, something rustled. We compare notes now, I said, keeping it clipped. She read dates and locations like a ledger. I matched them against screenshots and watched rows align. We hung on the same Tuesday and went quiet. Have you missed anything? I asked, pulse trying harder. A beat passed and she released air like surrender. Late by 8 days, she replied, then swallowed. My grip tightened and I stared at the locked door. A delivery alert buzzed his screen and flashed a code. Pharmacy pickup scheduled for 8 and a smirking icon. I screenshotted the notice and copied the order number. This wasn't romance anymore, it was logistics and risk. He texted that he would be 15 minutes away. I planted a quick test for the minute he returned. Let's do brunch with your mother tomorrow, I wrote. He typed a polite excuse and asked to reschedule next week. I called voicemail and turned on the recorder. He walked in while it captured the room. Change of plans, I asked, leaning on the counter. He raised both hands like peace and tried to charm. We could stay in, he offered, tone silky and thin. I slid my phone closer and asked about Thursday. He blinked and chose confidence over caution. Quality time is our tradition, he grinned, eyes glittering. Who else has traditions with you? I asked softly. His smile wobbled and then snapped back hard. Nobody, he replied, then looked left at the clock. The recorder caught the pause in the shallow breath. I put his device on the table and opened photos. He reached for it and I let him touch air. A mirror of the folder glowed on my laptop. Rows of archives stacked like tiny verdicts waiting. What do you think you're doing? His voice tightened. Inventory, I said, because euphemisms were done. He glanced at the door again and shifted weight. Let's not ruin dinner, he added with a twitch. We already did, I tapped the reminder named planting. He stared at the screen and tried to laugh. Cute joke, he murmured and licked a dry lip. I opened Lena's voice note and turned the volume up. He flinched when her words filled the room. Rotation tidy, Thursday fiance, each detail landed heavy. He dragged a chair and rested both hands on it. Okay, he breathed, let's talk. The recorder kept working. Start with honesty, I said, eyes not leaving him. He picked at a knuckle and avoided my gaze. I wanted certainty, he managed, voice low and strained. Control, I answered, and his shoulders lifted then fell. The apartment hummed with tiny machines and my heart beat. I saved the file and backed it up twice. We will need a test, I said, words like gravel. He nodded too quickly and reached for his wallet. Not from your pharmacy, I added without blinking. His hand froze on leather and then slid away. Silence stretched as we stared each other down. My phone buzzed with Nia on standby again. Give me the shared calendar, I said, palm open. He refused with a quick shake and a shallow smile. I opened settings and requested access from his account. A prompt asked to approve and waited on his screen. His thumbs hovered, then pressed accept with a tiny twitch. My screen populated with neat blocks and initials. 3 recurring windows glowed like a business plan. I took one long breath and chose a new move. I'm texting both women right now, I said. His jaw jumped and he reached for the phone. I stepped back and sent the group thread live. 2 dots appeared and my pulse steadied against fear. Lena chimed first with a short curse and a yes. Nia followed with a clipped ready and a timestamp. Conference now, I wrote and added a simple link. They joined immediately and stared at me through silence. We keep this recorded, I announced, clearing my throat. He shook his head and touched my elbow for calm. I pulled away and pointed the device at the table. This is evidence, I finished, and the room sharpened. He asked for privacy with a small pleading gesture. I looked at the women and then back to him. No more closed doors, I answered and felt taller. The call waited and the timer blinked like a fuse. Were you trying to trap us? I asked without flinching. He looked at the floor and then forced eye contact. I wanted a family, he whispered, voice nearly breaking. Not like this, I shot back and my hands stopped trembling. Nia spoke first with a tight breath and resolve. I'm booking a clinic, she said, steady and clear. Lena followed with a crisp list of next steps. I felt the ground under me return with a jolt. He sagged against the chair and rubbed his temples. Please, one word that came late and meant nothing. The group watched him choose silence over repair. I ended the call and left it recording anyway. We're not done, I told him with calm control. Tomorrow morning we meet again with witnesses. He swallowed hard and nodded without lifting his eyes. I opened the door and let the night push in. I arrived early and killed the location sharing. He was already inside, posture stiff, hands empty. Lena slid in from the street and kept her chin up. Nia followed last and locked the door behind her like insurance. We do this quick, I opened, phone on record. He glanced at the device and put on a careful smile. No ambush, he tried, shoulders loose, eyes not. We verify, I answered, and Lena nodded like a gavel. Nia placed a paper bag on the table and waited. He stared at it as if it might bark. From your preferred shop, she said, fingers steady. I checked the label and felt my jaw set. Scan the barcode, I told him, lifting my phone. He swallowed and named a reason to postpone. Lena already had the order number pulled up. The database pinged fresh pickup at 8:12. Open it, I pushed, keeping my tone even. He peeled it slowly and set 2 blister packs down. Not the brand we discussed, not even close. Nia raised a brow and kept her voice cool. Wrong dosage for what you promised, she said. My gut twisted once, then flattened into resolve. Different plan for each of us, I said. He looked at the packs like they betrayed him. I slid a portable test across the table and waited. He laughed too quickly and reached for the door. Lena beat him there and blocked the exit. Stay, she said, and her hands didn't shake. Fine, he dragged a chair and sat with care. Show me yours first, he challenged, chin tilted. I placed yesterday's result beside the recorder. His eyes flicked to it, then away like fire. Your turn, I pressed, pointing at the calendar app. Full access, Nia added, thumb ready over her phone. He hesitated and then tapped approve with tight lips. New entries appeared that none of us knew existed. 4 other initials stacked under repeating reminders. Lena cursed under her breath and looked at me. Nia started listing times that overlapped Tuesday. I leaned back and felt the room change temperature. He went for sympathy and squeezed his temples. I panicked, came out soft, almost convincing. Details, I said, not offering him a bridge. He rubbed his jaw and reached for words that didn't help. You wanted certainty, I reminded, voice flat as stone. Explain the tampered supplies and the pharmacy secrets. He stared at the packs like they were strangers. I overcorrected, he muttered, and my stomach hardened. We're documenting and we're done, I said, pulse steady. Refunds, doctor appointments, separate spaces starting now. He straightened like a puppet pulled too high. "You'll ruin me," he exhaled, and it almost sounded true. "You did that yourself," Lena cut in with ice. "Transfer what you owe or we escalate today." Nia opened a payment app and set a timer. The countdown ticked and his hands started to tremble. He entered numbers and grimaced at the total. My phone chimed twice and confirmed 2 deposits. Lena's screen lit with hers moments later. "Nah." I watched the final confirmation and lifted her chin. "One more thing," I said, choosing not to blink. "Hand over the spare entry key that isn't mine." He flinched so hard the chair scraped loudly. He dug in his pocket and produced a small metal answer. "Change the codes today," I told the women. "We keep these files offsite and on drives." He rubbed his wrist and stared at the table. "You planned this," he whispered, and I let it sit. "We adapted," I said, then passed him a printout. It listed boundaries, immediate steps, and a meeting time. Witnesses would be present, and the clinic was booked. He read it twice and found no place to push. "Will you talk to me alone?" he asked without confidence. Lena shook her head and backed me up. Nia stood and gathered her bag with purpose. I held the door open and let silence be the answer. He stood in the hallway and looked smaller than before. "Do you hate me?" he asked, voice barely there. I let the question hang long enough to sting. "I trust myself now," I said, and his mouth closed. The elevator arrived and we stepped in as a unit. My hand stopped shaking, but my chest still burned. "Next call is a lawyer," Lena whispered, eyes forward. I nodded once and saved a new contact like armor. Outside, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I answered and a cautious voice asked for me. "Check your inbox," she urged, then ended the call. An email landed with contracts and a familiar signature. Engagement agreements with 2 other dates stared back. Lena caught the subject line and exhaled sharply. Nia leaned over and read enough to understand. New proof, new leverage, new moves waiting. I forwarded everything to a fresh address and locked it down. Then I sent a single message to his account. "Tomorrow at 9 with counsel," the text read. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then nothing. The door clicked at 9 and I hit record. He walked in with a bland smile and empty hands. Our attorney nodded once and opened a folder. "Ground rules," she began, and he rolled his shoulders like armor. "No arguments," I said, palms flat on the table. "We confirm facts and decide immediate steps." He studied my face and then the folder. "Fine," he muttered, eyes drifting to the recorder like a trap. "First item," the attorney said, tapping the list. "Unauthorized contacts and overlapping engagements." He stared past her and rubbed his knuckle hard. "Clerical mix-up," he offered, and my jaw locked. I slid the printed agreements across the surface. Different signatures, matching clauses, identical timelines. He skimmed, then blinked slower than usual. "Those aren't binding," he tried, voice barely above breath. "Second item," the attorney continued, pen steady. "Tampered protection and coordinated pharmacy pickups." He reached for water and missed the glass edge. "Our investigator verified the barcode history," she added, gaze level. "Insurance records show shared costs under your login," she said. The printout showed dates and amounts and store locations. He read the bottom line and swallowed quickly. "So you were watching me," he said, eyes flicking up. "I was surviving you," I answered, heart steady now. "We will handle medical next with witnesses." He dragged a thumb along the table's seam. "Let's not be dramatic," he whispered, but the room stiffened. My phone lit with a new message from an unknown. A photo appeared of a group chat I had not seen. 4 names and a pinned checklist with heart emojis. I forwarded it to the attorney and watched his pupils tighten. "Third item," she said, unmoved by his wince. "Funds owed for deposits and canceled venues." He laughed once without humor and looked at the ceiling. "Bill me," he said, and the attorney slid a figure forward. He stared at the number like it hissed. "That's theft," he barked, finally showing heat. "That's restitution," she replied, tapping the clause again. He rubbed his mouth and calculated, eyes gone narrow. The conference line beeped and connected the others. 2 brief greetings arrived and then silence. My pulse ticked, but my hand stayed calm. He lifted his chin and smoothed his hair like control. "Wire now," I said, and the room waited. He opened a banking app and hesitated on the amount. "Add the storage unit you never mentioned," I added. His thumb jerked and he looked right through me. Unit, he repeated, trying for confusion. The attorney slid a photograph from a private investigator. A hallway, a numbered lock, a monthly bill. He stared too long, then entered the transfer with shaky resolve. My phone chimed once, then again, confirmations landed. Lena's number flashed green, Nia's did the same. I nodded to the speaker and muted myself. We continue, the attorney said, voice crisp and unblinking. He leaned back like a tired actor between takes. I wanted a life with you, he murmured, eyebrows raised. No one answered and the silence pinned him. He leaned forward again and went for pleading eyes. The conference line cut through with a calm directive. Next step is medical and support, came the steady voice. He pressed his lips together and reached for the folder. I moved it away and placed 2 envelopes down. Clinic appointment here, I said, finger on the date. Follow-up scheduled here, I added, knuckle tapping. You attend and you pay and you keep distance. He looked at the clock like it owed him time. He tried a softer tactic and opened his palms. We could rebuild if we slow down. The attorney glanced at me and waited for my call. We accelerate, I answered, and his mouth shut. He reached for one last lever and showed me a ring. He tilted it like a lighthouse and waited. The old ache flickered and went dark on cue. I slid my chair back and felt my spine grow. We're done explaining, I said, voice even and hard. You sign this consent for data release now. The form asked to share records with counsel only. He scanned the lines and stalled at the final box. Why would I allow that, he asked, chin lifting. Because the alternative is police today, the attorney replied. He held my eyes and then pressed his signature. The room seemed to exhale and the clock kept moving. The speaker crackled as the others rejoined. Transfers received, Lena reported with clipped relief. Appointment confirmed, Nia added with stronger breath. I unmuted and thanked them and the line went quiet. He stood, then paused at the door like he might bolt. Do you still want me there tomorrow, he asked. You're there and you're useful, I said without shaking. He nodded once, small as a nod can be. Outside the conference room he lingered within earshot. He called someone and used a nickname I didn't know. I recorded the slip and saved it to a new folder. Another thread to pull and another mask slipping. The attorney gathered the papers with tidy movements. You handled pressure like a stone, she said gently. I let that sit and felt it land somewhere solid. Next we file notifications, she added, pen already moving. He returned with an apology rehearsed and smooth. I raised a hand and stopped the performance early. We speak tomorrow in front of nurses, I cut in. He lowered his gaze and finally stepped away. My hands trembled once the door shut fully. I pressed my palms together until the shake passed. This was the moment I chose myself over mess. And I knew there was still one more hidden door. The nurse called my name and he stood to follow. I blocked him with an open hand and steady breath. Wait outside until they ask for you, I said. He glanced at the receptionist, then stepped back with clenched jaw. Inside I gave urine, blood, and my timeline. The nurse documented, then asked if I felt safe. I do now, I answered and meant it hard. She noted the partner's presence and flagged consent forms for signatures. Bring him in for counseling, she suggested with care. I nodded and wiped my palms on my jeans. My stomach rolled once, then settled like it made a choice. The door opened and he stood there trying to smile. We're doing this together, he offered, voice smooth and thin. The counselor greeted him with a firm nod and clipboard. We'll review coercion risks today, she explained, eyes on him. His lips pressed FL. And the charm slid off. She asked about sabotage protection and I placed proof down. He scanned the photos with a tight laugh that failed. Those look edited, he tried, shoulders lifting an inch. She turned to him and detailed the testing protocol again. He signed the release with an exaggerated flourish that shook. Now we talk about support, the counselor continued without pause. Transport, recovery, privacy, and zero pressure at any stage. He shifted in the chair and aimed for sincerity again. I'm here for her, he insisted with palms up. Then you accept the distance plan, I answered without blinking. He hesitated and the counselor circled the relevant lines. Agree or wait outside, she said, and his stare went cold. He initialed each box while watching my face for softness. The nurse re-entered with results and a neutral tone. Early, she said, professional and clear, options available. I breathed out and felt grief and relief collide. He reached for my knee and I moved away. The counselor noticed and positioned her chair between us. We respect her boundary now, she said, calm and final. He nodded once, then lowered his gaze to the floor. Next appointment is in 3 days, the nurse observed. We recommend a support person who listens and drives. Lena texted right then and typed a single word. Here the screen read and my throat unlocked. I have a ride, I said and stood. He followed into the hall with quick steps and urgency. We should go home and talk, he urged, voice tight. I kept moving and pointed to the waiting area door. Lena rose, shoulders squared, eyes steady on him. Keys, she asked, palm open, patience thin. He blinked hard, then produced the entry copy grudgingly. Nia stepped from the elevator and folded her arms. He faltered at the sight of both women together. Group attack helps nobody, he attempted, tone wounded and stiff. Group prevention helps everyone, Nia answered, gaze unblinking. He looked past us toward the exit like a cornered runner. Storage unit, I said, stopping him mid-thought. We visit now or we call an officer first. He froze, then checked the time like it mattered. Fine, he muttered and gestured toward the stairs in surrender. We caravan across town in separate vehicles in silence. At the facility, he fumbled the code twice with sweaty hands. The lock opened and the door rolled up slow. Inside, boxes stacked in clean columns waited like secrets. No set dressing, Lena warned, voice low and sharp. We photograph, we count, we remove only relevant items. He hovered near the threshold with nervous fingers twitching. I stepped in and pulled the nearest lid toward daylight. Contracts sat on top with my initials on sticky notes. Underneath, a planner labeled with weekly slots and code names. Lena snapped images while Nia checked the corners carefully. He watched the hallway like he expected someone else to arrive. Nia lifted a small pouch and stopped when she felt weight. She opened it and spilled out tiny pinprick wrappers. Silence punched the room before any of us breathed. I felt anger arrive clean, like a blade without decoration. Call the investigator, I told Lena, voice controlled and cold. She dialed and spoke 3 sentences, then listened. Hold position, she repeated and ended the call. We kept working and cataloged each item with dates. He tried a different tactic and reached for humor again. You'll never understand long-term commitment, he smirked, eyes flat. Commitment needs consent, I replied with a steady stare. He opened his mouth, then shut it before anything worse escaped. A notification hit my phone with a new attachment. The attorney forwarded a sworn statement from a pharmacist. Cash pickups matching pattern, customer description that fit. I read it aloud and watched his shoulders dip. Enough, I said and zipped the pouch shut. We're closing this unit and transferring charges immediately. Nia filmed the meter and the sign-out screen. Lena locked the door and pocketed the receipt for evidence. He lunged for the pouch and I stepped back fast. His hand caught air and he cursed under breath. The manager turned the corner with a badge and quiet authority. Problem, she asked and glanced at our clipboards with interest. No problem, I answered and showed her the rental. Her eyes moved across the paperwork and the consent form. 10 minutes to finish, she said and walked on. His jaw flexed like he wanted to grind metal. On the way out, he followed too close and angry. Nia slowed until he had to pass her or stop. He stopped, then drew a breath that shook. Please talk to me alone, he pleaded, voice ragged now. Clinic rules continue, I said and faced him square. Separation for 30 days, communications through counsel. He flinched like the word slapped, then steadied. 30 days kills everything, he warned, a hint of threat. 30 days saves me, I answered and kept walking. Outside, Lena handed me water and squeezed my shoulder. You're holding the line, she murmured, warmth and grit. I nodded and let the tremor pass through me. Back at my place, I packed fast and precise. Essential documents, clothing for a week, the charger. The test went into an inner pocket like a knot. I closed the suitcase and stared at the ring on the table. A message arrived from an unfamiliar account with one line. Check Cloud Folder B, it read, uncannily direct and urgent. Inside, I found a video of his coaching session. He advised another man to fast-track security with pregnancy. My stomach flipped, then quieted like a sea gone still. I forwarded the clip to the attorney without commentary. Lena watched my face for a tell and found none. "We filed protective paperwork," she said and grabbed her keys. He texted 30 times while we drove to her place. Apologies, promises, plans, then rage, then guilt, then silence. I muted the thread and opened a new note. 3 columns formed: safety, medical, legal. Each had next steps. At Lena's door, I paused with the suitcase handle stiff. "Last thing before sleep," I told her, voice low. I opened the group chat and sent a single sentence. "Tomorrow we change numbers and meet the officer at noon." 3 read receipts appeared, then 3 short affirmations. I placed the phone face down and inhaled slow. Choosing myself felt like stepping onto solid earth again. Still, I knew morning held one more hard turn. I powered down my phone and fed the SIM to a shredder. New number activated with a handshake and a code phrase. Lena watched my hands move and nodded once. We left the shop and walked straight toward noon. The officer met us at the door and checked IDs. Short and focused, he said, "Palm up for calm." Nia arrived with a folder and a steady look. The conference room opened and my throat tightened on cue. He slipped in late with a forced smile and quick breath. The officer closed the door and set a recorder down. "Allegations first," he stated, gaze even and alert. I slid the pouch in the photo stack across. He reached, then pulled back like the paper burned. "Misunderstood boundaries," he offered, voice smooth but tired. The officer lifted one image and studied the pattern. "Where did these come from?" His voice thudded like a gavel. "From his unit," I answered, shoulders braced and ready. Lena placed the rental receipt beside the pouch. Nia added the pharmacy statement without flourish. He stared at the table like it might split. "Did you alter devices or accounts?" the officer asked. "No," he replied, eyes darting to the door. I unlocked my laptop and opened the mirrored folder. Screens filled with timelines, transfers, and recurring notes. The officer clicked through and paused at a video. A coaching clip played with his face and clear advice. "Fast-track security, use certainty, avoid discussions." He swallowed audibly and reached for his water too late. "Protective order temporary, effective now," the officer announced. He slid forms toward each of us for signatures. My pen moved without shaking for the first time. His pen scratched slower, then stopped halfway through. "Violation is arrest," the officer added, voice even steel. His phone buzzed on the table with an unknown alias. The officer glanced at the screen and raised a brow. "Turn that off before it creates trouble," calm but final. "I want to explain privately," he tried, hands half open. "Not today," I answered, pushing the pouch closer. Lena's jaw flexed and Nia folded her arms hard. He looked smaller, then looked angry, then looked nothing. The officer dialed the pharmacist and confirmed each barcode. Dates matched, orders matched, description matched. He stared at the far wall and blinked rapidly. The line clicked off and the room felt colder. "You will not contact any of them," the officer continued. "Only counsel, only written logistics, nothing else." He nodded once, a mechanical tilt with no warmth. "Keys," I said and held out my hand. He placed the last copy on the table and stepped back. The metal felt heavy and right in my palm. "Property retrieval is scheduled with supervision," the officer added. He tried to speak and found nothing useful to say. We stood and he reached toward me one final inch. The officer moved between us with a soft warning. "Distance," he reminded, and the inch turned to air. I breathed out once and the air stayed mine. Down the hallway, he took a side exit to wait. We walked straight and did not look left. Outside, Nia squeezed my shoulder once and released. "We're meeting at 3, she said, and meant all of it. At the carrier store, we switched to fresh accounts. New passphrases, new backups, cleaner lines. I deleted the old thread and felt a weight slide. Then I opened notes and wrote 3 short rules. Bank pinged with a reversa. L attempt flagged as urgent. We marched 2 doors over and handed them proofs. The manager reviewed the transfer and froze the request. An approval chime landed and something unclenched in my chest. With the officer present, we entered my apartment at 4. He hovered in the hallway while we packed quickly. I left the ring inside a plain envelope for counsel. The bedroom echoed with drawers closing like stamps. In the kitchen, I found one last sealed packet tucked deep. I held it to the light and saw no wounds. Still, I set it in the evidence bag anyway. Trust was not a reflex anymore, it was a choice. He appeared at the far end of the corridor, too close. The officer lifted a hand and warned him back. He froze, then backed away with a stiff jaw. We finished and turned the lock that final time. At the clinic, paperwork confirmed next steps and strict boundaries. A counselor reviewed safety numbers with clear cadence. I signed my name and felt it land like bedrock. Lena watched my face and smiled without softness. We regrouped by the curb to plan the week. Nia mapped rides and time off in crisp blocks. I scheduled therapy and set alarms that felt sane. A quiet grew around us that didn't feel empty. An email arrived from a new contact with a subject line. Confirming your statement, it read, plus a docket number. I forwarded it to the group and locked my screen. The three of us kept standing there like a line. He texted again from a different handle with a single plea. Don't do this, the message read, no punctuation, only panic. I saved the number and sent it to the officer. Then I blocked it and watched it die in place. Back at Lena's, I placed the envelope on the table. The test stayed in my pocket like a stone. I looked at the ceiling and felt my spine lengthen. When I exhaled, I sounded like someone I trusted. We toasted with water and made a final promise. No more secrecy, no more slow boiling, only daylight. The phones went into a drawer and stayed silent. I slept without bracing for footsteps outside my door. Morning brought a single notification from the court system. Protective order active, service completed, compliance required. I read it twice and let the words settle. Then I opened the window and let the air change.